Hello. I wanted to this video to further what I was talking about yesterday, which was that people are weak and that most people are weak and that there's nothing that can be done about it. You just can't count on people. That the mainstream media is shot because it's based on profits. It's in stiff competition, so it has to just pander. It has to create news and make news seem worse than it is, so people will watch, because people will watch more when the news is bad than good, and that increases their ratings and that increases their profits. So the mainstream media can't be counted on at all anymore. In fact, just not at all. Government could never be counted on. The only thing that was good about government is that the mainstream media back, say, 40, 50, 60 years ago, when it had credibility and didn't have as much competition, back then it was like the better you were, the more people said, oh, okay, they're good, so we'll watch them. Well, that's not the case anymore. But back then there was integrity, and more integrity meant better ratings, and that meant more profit. So there was an incentive to do better. But that's gone. So they're not keeping politicians in check anymore, because they're just not. They have no need to. If anything, they want the politicians to act more crazy, not more tepid. The more crazy they act, the more people will watch it, because they're like watching a circus. So I'm quite sure the new. Both left and right love Trump as president, because the media anyway, because the right, it's their guy, and the left, it's, hey, there's some nut we can hate, somebody we think is nuts, so we can hate him. And he says so many controversial things, so it's fantastic. And the people were always weak, but they always had not always, but they had a relatively decent mainstream media that was keeping the politicians in check. Well, that's gone now, so now the politicians can go crazy, like they're doing with this COVID-19 thing. So we've seen that the masses will just cave completely, like 70, 2/3 or 3/4, if not more, of the masses will just completely cave in, and they're so easy to con. So you just can't count on them anymore. So the only solution is to force governments to put very strong freedoms, laws in place that protect our freedoms. But they're not going to do that, because to do that, that means they lose power. They're not going to want to do that. Why would they want to lose power? They got into politics for power. Why would they want to lose power? So they won't do it. And they'll con the masses into thinking, oh, that's bad, we have to look after you, or you'll die, or something. So what can be done? Well, one thing to keep in mind first is that I've written some things down here. One thing to keep in mind first is that I think the economies of the world will implode. I think it's inevitable. All this debt piling up, central banks going crazy. They're shooting all their bullets. Like ZIRP, which is zero interest rate policy, and QEs and QE. And now they're doing the mother of all QE, and that's just going to be. And then they're going to be bigger and bigger, and they're just going to keep propping up the government, propping up the economy, because they're on a death ride now. They have to. They can't let it go, because look what happened. Was it a year and a half ago or whatever, when the interest rates started going up and the market panicked and just collapsed. Well, started to collapse, and then so they can't. The central banks, which are absolute scum in terms of honor and decency and free enterprise, and they're just out for the big guy. Even the central bankers that might mean well, the very few of them, they're macroeconomic ignoramuses. The minutes of the 2007, when the crash was happening, 2007, that showed just that the Fed, for example, had no idea what was going on. They were completely, they had no clue as to how severe it was. It should have been obvious to them, and they were just out of it. So they're clueless. They're just a bunch of bean counters, glorified bean counters. They're completely useless otherwise. They wouldn't understand free economics if it, free market economy if it fell on their head. I mean, they understand the basics and what it means. They can define it, but they don't get it. They just don't get it. If they had, they would have understood that what happened in 2007 was a major sell-off, not just subprime, which is what they thought it was. They thought the selling was just subprime and it would correct itself. It was obvious. It was way more than that. But they're clueless. They're very intelligent. They're extremely well schooled, and they're clueless. They're just bean counters. They're bureaucrats. Never been in the economy themselves. Never had to go out there and fight for it themselves. Never had to work for themselves. Just live in their ivory towers. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. I mean, the minutes of the 2007 Fed minutes prove when all hell was breaking loose, they were clueless what was going on. They just thought it was subprime when it was obviously more than that. So anyway, so every boom has to end. Every boom is generally a bust. We've got a huge boom going on. We've got money printing like crazy, massive debt. Everybody's living on cheap interest rates. It's all going to end, and it's all going to end badly. Now, it could take 2 years, or it could take 20 years to end. It could be a while, but it will end, and it will end horribly. But I don't know when. So that needs to be kept in mind. So if the point is that when that happens, people are going to say, you know what, you government, you Fed, you central banks, you mainstream media, you lied to us. You told us the economy was booming. You told us everything was under control. You told us, I'm sure they don't really completely believe them now, but they want to believe them now. But when everything falls apart, they'll realize many of them, not all of them, but many of them will realize they can't count on them in the slightest. When they see all the rich having their golden parachutes and they're completely screwed and the rest are screwed, they're going to realize that they got completely screwed. And that they may not know what to do about it, but they'll know that they got screwed and they'll be angry. And it's starting already now. The right is starting to get angry and the left is starting to get angry. The right is getting angry by blaming foreigners and they want it like it used to be, whatever that was, like in the 50s and the 60s or whatever. Some old timers mostly, or even the 70s, or even the 80s. And the left wants, they want massive government. They want government to control everything, to give you tons of free stuff and free money, and they despise free enterprise, and they want and they want the rich to be killed, not literally, but they want to take all their money. And so they're both getting angry, but they don't seem to know why they're angry. They're just sort of guessing and just lashing out. When the S hits the fan, I don't think they'll get it then, but they'll know that they got screwed. So goodness knows what'll happen to them. So there's an opportunity there. When that happens, there's an opportunity to really get more human rights put into the constitutions of countries, because the people will be more open for it then. But like I said, I don't know when that'll be. Anyway, taking that into account, there's several ways to handle the fact that people are weak. It's, basically to start your own system. What can you do? Well, there's illegal means like overthrowing a country and then install your people and then then write the Constitution the way you want it. But I'm not interested in that. That's illegal. It gets people killed. That doesn't interest me at all. So no, I don't want to do that. You could live under the radar of countries' laws, largely through cryptocurrencies, which is no taxes, and you can make money faster, hence there's no taxes. But there's cryptocurrency limitations. I personally think cryptos, they're already banned in a lot of countries, and I think eventually they're going to be banned completely because, cryptocurrencies are, governments can't read cryptocurrency transactions. So in theory, you could live under the radar and make money and not pay any taxes, and they're not even going to know about it. So what happens? Then the government starts losing money. If enough people do it, the government will lose a lot of money. A lot of tax money that would be coming into them will not be coming in anymore. You think the government's going to allow that? Of course not. They're going to freak out. They're going to say no. They're going to ban cryptos. It's inevitable. Eventually, if cryptos get big enough, they'll ban them. And then what are you going to do? You know, if they don't even recognize your money, then you can't buy anything. I mean, you can buy stuff under the radar, but how much can you buy? You can't buy a car under the radar. You can't buy you can't pay your if you have a house, you can't pay your land taxes under the radar. You can't pay for gas under the radar. You can't pay the gas tax that goes on gas under the radar. I mean, you can't do it. It just doesn't work. So you can't. It just doesn't work. And again, it's unethical. I don't really want to do it that way. Either do it. I believe what goes around comes around. Either do it legitimately or don't bother. Is the way I look upon it. I mean, if you want something that's long lasting, that's gonna be solid and last forever, you've got to do it legally and you have to do it ethically. So, I don't want to get the freedoms I want through illegal means. So that leaves four things that I can think of. One is change the government legally, like through elections. Two is start your own country. Three is start your own little sub-country inside a more lenient country. And four is start a mini religion that espouses the individual freedoms that you want, and that sort of starts the ball rolling. I'll do the pros and cons of each. Change the government. I'm reading this. Change the government that I wrote so that laws are put in place that protect individual rights, which is what I'm looking for. I want laws in place that will not allow the country, the government, to come along and say, we're shutting down your business, we're shutting down, even though you've done nothing illegal, we're forcing you to do this, stay in your homes, even though you did nothing illegal and there's no martial law. Just because of a virus going around, we can do anything we want. We can stop you from working, we can crush your business because you can't open it. We can force you to stay home for as long as we want. All kinds of things. We won't let you go to parks. We won't let you. I mean, it's no life almost. That power must be taken away from them, and it can't be they promise, because that means nothing. It has to be put in the Constitution that we have the power. We have the power over our own bodies. We can kill ourselves. We can take drugs if we want. We can do dangerous things to our bodies. The reason the suicide is not just because we should have that right, is also because if we have the right to commit suicide, then we have the right to live dangerously. Because meaning that because right now the government can say, well, we can't let you go outside when there's a virus there because you might die, and we have control over you for that. If they lose that power, then we can say, if they say, well, you can't come outside because it's dangerous, and you could say, well, I'm hoping to die this way. Then, I mean, even if you're not. So what are they going to say? The law has been put in place that you can kill yourself. Then they can't stop you from doing dangerous things because you can just say, well, I'm doing it to kill myself. Then they can't stop you. It has to be an absolute. It can't be just it can't be like you can kill yourself under certain circumstances. It must be, it's your body. If you're a sane adult, you can kill yourself. End of story. If you're a sane adult, that also means you can take drugs, recreational drugs, which ends the drugs war, which saves a whole bunch of money. I don't take recreational drugs anymore. I haven't for like 15 years at least, but you don't. So I'm not doing it for my gain, but I'm just saying that you would have you would then have the at least have the right to do that, which would end the drug war and save a bunch of money and that would help a lot. And far less people in jail. And again, you could kill yourself whenever you wanted, and also and they would not be able to say, well, we have, if the next time a virus pops up, they can't say, well, we have to protect you, because then we could turn around and say, no, you can't. You don't have the right to protect us anymore. We protect ourselves. Unless you can prove in court that we are not sane and adults, then you can't protect. You have given up the right to protect us. The Constitution we will change it to say you do not have the right to look after us anymore. We look after ourselves. We decide what we put in our bodies. We decide when we die, assuming, like, if we kill ourselves. We decide where we go, in terms of our own health. If we want to go someplace that's unhealthy and we're legally allowed to go there, it's public property, then we should be able to go there. And you have no say on it because you are not in control of our body. Anyway, I think you get what I'm saying. So to do this by changing the government and putting in the laws ourselves, by you have to start a political party because no party has this. I mean, I'd say the closest would be the libertarians, but they're mired in like 2-3%. They're going nowhere. And they're going to go nowhere because their ideas of, and I agree with a lot of their ideas, but their ideas about welfare is a dead end, is a complete dead end. Because they think welfare is basically nonsense. They think it's up to each individual to look after themselves. And if they get into trouble, then they have to go to charity or friends or themselves. They cannot go to the government. That's not going to wash. That's just not going to wash. Most people are just not, maybe 100 years ago it might have, but not now. It's not going to wash. People just don't see. That's dinosaur stuff. The government has to look after people. They shouldn't be sending them checks. But they need to give them enough to get by. They have to. I mean, you can't just let people starve to death. I mean, that's just nuts. So as long as the libertarians embrace their extremism that way, they're never going anywhere. I mean, they were more popular in the 70s, I think, than they are now. They're definitely not going. So that's out. So you need to start a new party. Don't know what it would be, but it would, the foundation would be getting our rights back. But that would take a long time. You've got to convince a lot of people. It's been tried before. It didn't work on different ways. Like I said, the Libertarian Party, you'd have to convince a lot of weak people who like the government controlling them that they don't want to be controlled anymore. So it probably wouldn't work. The pros I put down here, it's the cheapest way to do it, are the 4 I've listed. If you get the right leader with the right timing, like when the economy implodes, it might work. The cons probably takes the longest because unless you time it just right, you got to convince a whole bunch of people who love the government to not love the government, to look after yourself. So that's tough. And considering the weakness of most people, it will probably be the most unlikely to come to pass in the next 10 to 20 years. That's what I said. And I think that's right because you have to convince a ton of people to stop letting mommy and daddy government look after you. You need to look after yourself. I mean, the government will look after your basic rights, food and shelter and stuff, but, I don't, that you have the right over your body to commit suicide, to do drugs, to drink battery acid if you want, to risk getting a virus. And I don't think most people will go along with that. So unless you catch them at the right time and you have a real charismatic leader to do it. Because the masses are weak. And if they got a charismatic leader who's really good at what he says or she says, it could work. But you can't count on that. So it's probably not likely. Certainly not anytime soon. Start your own countries, number 2. Several ways: buy land, lease land, buy an island, or build an island. I've looked into this in the past just for fun and curiosity. And for one thing, in case you don't know, all the land in the world's taken. Every single piece of land in the world is taken by somebody. Even land that is underwater during high tide, but is above water in low tide, that's all taken too. There's nothing left. So you can't hope to go find land. That won't work. It's all taken. You'd have to either buy land off a country. No country's going to sell you land unless the land is garbage and they're dying to get rid of it. Why would they sell land? Because that's selling power. Maybe they would, but I don't see why they would. Lease a land? That's maybe possible. You get a poor enough country that has a lot of land, has a fairly low population density, and is really in a lot of financial problems and can use the money. The land wouldn't be very desirable because if it had, wouldn't have lots of natural resources on it because they wouldn't lease it otherwise. Excuse me. But so it'd have to be leased for 50 years. It'd have to be a long time. No point in leasing it for 2 years. I mean, it'd have to be 50 years at least. 99 years would be ideal. That's a possibility, but it would cost billions. I mean, you're going to lease land off this country. It's going to cost billions and billions, and every year it's going to cost billions. So probably, if you want to lease a decent size amount, probably like the size of a city-state like Singapore, or more would be better, but got to be realistic. That could fit a few 100,000 people, maybe a few million if you really build it up. But well, definitely a few million. I mean, Singapore's got millions, so you could you could do it, but very expensive. The other is build an island. That's insanely expensive. That's been done. That's been tried and looked at many times. That is just astronomically expensive. I mean, just to build a little island in Japan in a bay just offshore for an airport. They've done it several times. That costs billions and billions and billions. And that's a tiny island. That's right offshore. You'd have to build this in international waters, and also it has to be shallow enough that you have to, you're going to have to put a heck of a lot of something, dirt or something there to build it up, just so that it goes from the bottom of the ocean to the top of to where the sea level is. Then you got to build it on top of that. I mean, it would just be, I have no idea what it would cost, but I would guess 50 billion to 100 billion minimum. So I just, as that would be ideal if you had the money, if you could do that, because then you could just establish your own country, make your own laws, build it more or less wherever you wanted, and build it someplace nice, tropical, warm. You could have tourism to help with your income. But too much money. Again, the pros I wrote down, not dependent on the weak masses. Again, yeah, you're not, because you can, assuming you had the money, you can just build it and make it any way you want. If resources are available, it would be the most feasible, and it would. But getting the resources is, because you could do it. I mean, the technology is definitely there. If you had the money, it's just, it's just an insane amount of money. And the other pro is country could be designed exactly as you wish it to be. The cons are incredibly expensive, would require either millions of people in support or several extremely wealthy individuals to put off that would support it, because you're going to get all that money. I mean, you need millions to raise billions and billions. Would still take many years just to build the basic infrastructure, and it would. I mean, even if tomorrow, boom, I had the money to do it, it would take, years and years, probably take 10 years just to build a basic enough island that you could start living on it. So 5 years minimum. So it's going to take a long time. But it would be the best solution in the end if you could do it. Okay, that's start your own country. So it's not realistic. It's just too expensive. Probably leasing the land is probably the better option. Would cost not as much if you found the right country, and the land's there right away. So 3, start your own little sub-country inside a more lenient country, and try and escape from government control as much as possible. So basically you start a little enclave, you build some buildings near a city, not too far from a major urban area, but just, outside where the land's cheaper. And you don't call it a sub-country, but in essence, that's what you're doing. I mean, you build a little country, and you have where people go to live, and you have your own way, and try and make it as self-contained as you can. Try and depend on the government as little as you can. Stay low, stay out of their way. I mean, verbally, and stay out of off the radar, and just live your life, and hopefully watch, if you do it right, let it grow and build more money. I mean, the goal is to lease the land. If you can't that's the other thing. That's two things. If you do it really well, you can convince a lot of people. Well, I'll read the pros. Simplest and easiest of the 3. It is. I meant the 4. This is before I did 4. Simplest and easiest of the 4. I don't know about that. Simplest and easiest of the 3, that's for sure, that I've mentioned so far. More expensive than changing the government, but far less expensive than starting a new country. Yep. Because you just need to build a building, a few buildings. You don't need much to start it. Buy some land and build a few buildings. With enough resources, could be ready to live in within a year or 2. Yep, that's true. Cons will still require quite a bit of money and people, but millions instead of billions. Yeah, that's problem. If you want to start something real small, wouldn't even need millions. But if you want to do it, decently with a few hundred people, you'd probably need millions. Million at least. Must live under the country's laws you locate in. So you can't make it. You still have to live within their laws. I'm not suggesting you do something illegal there, because then they'll just get shut down and then forget it. It's a waste of money, waste of time. And I don't want to do it that way anyway, like I said. And must be run meticulously or risk of spiraling into a cult. Well, exactly. If you if you get someone running it who starts getting power hungry and power mad and starts wanting to, sleep with everybody and, turns into a cult, then it's like, some kind, I mean, nothing like David Koresh and those people, but I'm just saying that's what comes in my mind. I mean, you don't want it to you don't want to let it go like that. Of course, that's more of a religion than a subcountry, but you don't want to get it too freakish. It's just got to be run really, really well, very decently, very, and if you do it well, then it will grow. People will see, hey, this is a nice way to live. It's easygoing. It's da 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 da. Let's live here, and it's not, But the goal is still to start your own country, or to win an election to change the constitution of that's the goal. But this is a good start, and also it gives you some ideas about let you try some things and see how they work and things like that. And the last one is start a mini religion that espouses individual freedom that is very loosely attached to the political party, or not at all, except in private. It wouldn't be based on God or anything like that. It would be based on you just espouse individual freedom, and I don't know what it would be. I have to think about it. But barring something unforeseen, I will think about it. But you would just start a religion. It would just be a religion for the tax-free status. That's it. If that becomes not worth it, then don't bother, because just make it a little a movement. But anyway, I have here pros for that would make earnings tax-free. Could attract a wider range of people who are just looking for a different way of life, which is true. Would allow a mini country to start up without causing as much concern to the government. So it's sort of like the mini country, but but if you're saying you're starting a mini country in another country, even though you're not calling it a mini country, but in essence it is, you're going to make the government nervous, and you're going to make people curious. If you just call it a religion and it's just like, this is a religion, then people then they don't worry so much about it. As long as you keep it, you run it meticulously and perfectly and cleanly and decently, then it's just looked upon as a religion. Oh, it's that religious people out there. They're all right. They're fine. They're normal. Whatever. They just got their religion. But if you say we're starting a new mini country, well, then the government's not going to like that. Cons are I'm reading this, must be run incredibly well. If too many mistakes made, reputation of entire movement can plummet, make movement look cultish, and it could. Again, I'm thinking of David Koresh. Again, that's an extreme, but that's, if you make mistakes, you'll start looking like a buffoon. You think like Scientology. I don't know, that's kind of goofy. And I'm I'm not attached to any religion. I don't believe in any religion, but I'm Anglican by birth, but I don't have any religious affiliation at all. I just so you have to be very careful how you run it, because if you do anything really stupid, if you get one leader, if there is a leader, if you have a leader who acts really stupid, starts having sex with 12-year-olds or something, just freaking nuts, then it's going to hurt everything. And if you're even slightly affiliated with the political party, then you'll hurt that too, because people just say, well, I'm not voting for that because they're a bunch of bunch of kooks. Another con is would attract more weak people, as religious people tend to be weaker. And that's true. My personal belief is all religion, the people that are into religion are three things. They're either weak and or ignorant and or desperate. I mean, that's why people join religions. Unless they were stuck into it at birth and their parents made them do it. That's why they join it. They're either weak or they're ignorant or they're desperate. You don't see a lot of happy, smart, knowledgeable, strong people joining religion. You just don't. People join them because they're unhappy and they're looking for something. And so you're attracting weaker people to your movement. And so there's a negative. The positive is you're attracting people that you might not otherwise. The negative is you're attracting people that are weak and could be fickle. And, and again, if you even start hinting at a bit of a cult-like thing, you're going to start attracting really goofy people. And I don't want that. And another last con is even if run well, a religion as the basis of a country, again, can look too cultish. Again, yeah, I mean, if you manage to raise enough money to do all that, and then you start releasing a country or something, and they say, well, what is this country based on? And somebody says, well, it's based on that religion. Ugh, I don't agree. Again, if it's not run perfectly, people are going to start thinking negative about it. So it really would be religious only in the tax-free status part. I would not want to emphasize religion. And it's not even, you don't even have to do it as a religion, but I would like to try just to save the tax money. And you would attract more people potentially because they might go there not just because they agree with you politically, but because they want a change. They need, but again, they could be weak, but also too, though, they can be weak, but also religious people can be very loyal. So there is a plus side to that. But but they're so there is a plus side. So anyway, so those are the four. I hope those made sense. Now, what would I think is the way to do it with all those four? My guess would be, I'm reading this, to start a political party that matches your ideas, strong individual freedoms written into the Constitution. The government cannot, or the Bill of Rights, whatever it is, the government, you take control of your body again, basically. Right now, the government has control of your body. I want it so we have control of our own bodies. Now, we can't go and tell others how to run their lives, no, but we have control of our own bodies. In that case, in that sense, it is very libertarian. It's like, I don't disagree with everything the libertarians do. I agree with a lot of them, but I don't agree with the welfare thing and some other things I don't agree with. But the individual freedoms, I agree with them very much. So you start a political party that matches your ideas, just in case it gains traction fast. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Just let the people come to it. You start it up and let people come. If they don't come, well, they don't come. If they do, let it grow. So just give that a chance. Keep that going. Don't throw it away. Next would be start a light religion that is loosely affiliated with main political movement, will allow funds to be raised tax-free, and could help with growth. Yes, the people involved, I'm reading this obviously, yes, the people involved could be weak, but the more of them on your side, the less on the other side to oppose you, which is true. And for the reasons I said, it could help. And it's a better way to start than to start a sub-country and call it a sub-country that we're trying. It's going to make people nervous, especially the government. The government gets nervous once you start threatening to take away their power. That's when they get nervous, among other things. You start the sub-country under the religious guise, which is what it is. You use it to work out the bugs for greater growth later. Again, I'm reading this. Again, if run properly, could see decent growth, all tax-free. So the religion sort of becomes a sub-country, this little religious group that have little areas here and there in different countries, and you can build up funds that way. And the last part is keep open the option of acquiring a lease of some land. Say if a huge donor or two comes on board, hold out the new country as a dream goal. So you basically start the political party. There's no harm in doing that. It may not go anywhere, but you never know. Start a light religion, which is basically the sub-country under the religious guise, which is basically a place where you have your ideals, where you are be as self-contained as possible. Your own industries, your own. I don't mean we live on the land. I want to be agrarian or anything. I want to be fully modern, but just that it's you work out the bugs of try and do it as far as the laws of your land will allow, to make it as free as you can. Don't go against the law deliberately, because eventually they'll catch you and they'll stop you. And that's not the way I want to do it anyway. But just do it so it keeps them. Try as much as you can within the law, and then also keep open the option of the country. If you can't, if the political party is not going anywhere, then keep open, and even if it is, keep open the option of getting the money together one day to lease land to start your own country, because that's the best way to do it, because then you can do it any way you want. So that's my way of going forward. I'll go more, if I can, I'll go more into detail in the future, very soon, if I can. And Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about what to do now. I've decided, and I'm sadly, that the people are just too weak and the government is too corrupt and the mainstream media is a waste of time. And of course, as I already knew, central bank is almost worse than evil. I mean, they're not literally evil, but I mean, they're strictly around for the rich. They don't do anything for the middle class and the poor. Uh, so anyway, that's my thoughts on this, and I'll hopefully elaborate on them in another time. Thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.